Welcome to Reach Live. I'm Reena Sooch, your regular end of month host for Reach Live. Thank you for those that are regular attendees, and to those that are new, welcome. Reach Live is on the last Friday of every month, so be sure to click subscribe and stay with us. And each month we have a digital health leader, an executive, an individual who is forging the way in the future of health. And today we have a fantastic guest with us, the Chief Medical Officer from Penn Medicine. Craig, welcome to Reach Live. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, Reena. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here today to speak with you on this.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So, as always, it's good to kickstart with some intros. Give us a brief outline of your background and your role and what you're up to at the moment.
Okay, great. My name is Craig Gronczewski. I'm an emergency board certified emergency medicine physician. I've been practicing for about 20 years now. I got heavily involved in leadership, starting with being the chair of our department, emergency medicine. Became the president of the medical staff as well. And then several years ago, kind of expanded my role, becoming associate chief medical officer, and now the permanent chief medical officer of Penn Medicine Princeton Health.
So you're a busy man, no doubt. Lots to do and lots to change with healthcare.
I think we've all been very busy in healthcare. The past 2 years has really pushed the envelope as to how busy we can capably be.
I know, so true. So thinking about the role of technology, I mean, each month we kind of tackle the changing landscape of healthcare, and technology is a huge part of that. So tell me the role of technology in healthcare for you. What's been like a standout moment for you with technology in healthcare?
I feel like, I still feel like I'm a young physician, but I'm middle career. But it feels like multiple lifetimes that I've been practicing in terms of technology. Hard to understand, but when I started practicing, you would have to go down. If you wanted to see somebody's chest X-ray, you'd have to walk down to the Department of Radiology, go to the file room, pull out the one and only printable X-ray and put it on the screen. And now, as an emergency physician, I can connect with a neurosurgical subspecialist at a comprehensive stroke center within our system from another state. And he or she and I can review advanced CAT scan images in real time on different screens, looking at the same images, and discuss the case of the patient we're under evaluation. I used to have a fanny pack as a young emergency physician with all of the information that I might need to know in the event of somebody coming in with a rattlesnake bite. Never seen anyone with a rattlesnake bite. In my fanny pack were books and references on how I can manage that patient. The access to information at our fingertips through our networks or web, all the platforms that are available now. It's hard to believe sometimes how far we've advanced in my short career.
Yeah, I can imagine, in those kind of scenarios and what that means for care, right? So being able to, like you say, do shared decision making, sit together over a case, bring people together from different parts of the world, and also the data that you generate. How that evolution been for you, and kind of how is that changing healthcare?
Yeah, I mean, just back to the emergency medicine example, emergency physicians and what we're faced with seeing the challenge we have, we need to be prepared for everything that walks in the door. And we don't, there is a fine line, a gray line from where our scope of our specialty practices begins and ends. And in order to effectively take care of the patient, we need to reach out to consultants. It's like we can now, communication is so important in healthcare. To be able to connect to someone by phone is one thing, but to be able to connect with the cardiologist and have them visualize the EKG remotely, it just magnifies the ability for us to take care of the patient. EMS, pre-hospital arrival, the ability for, the paramedics to transmit real information, vital signs, video images of the patient, what kind of distress they're in, transmitting those EKGs and the monitor strips to us. It allows us to provide better care for the patient in a timely manner.
And if we look at COVID, which has been the ultimate acceleration with technology in healthcare, how has that changed kind of within the workspace that you've been, in for quite some time? What was it about COVID that changed bringing technology in?
Well, we're going to need another 30 minutes for this, I think. But I think for all of us, it was a real inflection point in so many ways in terms of technical and digital space. The technologies we were hearing about, we just put them out there. We did them in so many ways. So for COVID, some of the things that come out was such a disruptive event for healthcare and hospital-based medicine and beyond. We knew. I mean, we converted in many ways. We used technology to become more contactless. We used that to reduce touch points face to face with staff to protect patients and staff. So technology was used very quickly to roll out contactless discharge papers, contactless registration. So we went away from pen and paper and signing a consent form to using technology to have to be in the room to register a patient. Discharge patients could be transmitted to patient portals for them to read and interpret. We had patient portals where patients could get their results for their COVID tests as soon, if not faster than as their treating physician would receive them. We allowed, for the first time in my career, we all of a sudden had large groups of physicians with idle time. Their ambulatory practices were shut down. The hospital-based practices, the ICU doctors and ER doctors and hospitalists were working harder than ever. And our ability to tap into those physicians who were idle and remote, we used an entire department, a group of physicians, a centralized position to be the arbiters of all the COVID results that were coming in from all 6 hospitals in our system. So, rather than have the ER physicians and ICUs take their time to manage results on patients they discharged the day prior, were able to deploy physicians remotely to take on this task and ease up some of the workload at the hospital. So those are some examples where technology really helped us very quickly. Also enrolling patients who were discharged with COVID pending results. When they had those test results, getting access to treatment. Not every patient with COVID needed to stay in the hospital, remain in the hospital, but who's going to manage those patients at home in isolation? So using, we had a platform that we through our innovation center called COVID Watch. So every patient with COVID, we could enroll in this program, and through a smartphone-based app, they would get text-based messages. How are they doing? And if they were answering questions with any concerned response, I'm feeling short of breath, that would be escalated and triggered to a nurse practitioner who could make a connection with that patient and decide and determine if that patient needed to return to the ER or not. So there's another example of technology really shifted. And of course, telehealth. We've been hearing about the benefits and opportunity for telehealth. We've also been hearing the barriers to implementing it, such as reimbursement. So often in healthcare, if providers and systems don't get reimbursed for providing care, that care will not be provided. So we've been hearing about these barriers, but COVID really kind of was the inflection point for us to just go out there and do it.
And go out there and do it is the language. I mean, that for me is the most fascinating thing. Conversations, since I work in research, conversations I've been having for years happened overnight. Aspirations people had for decades in their career happened at some point overnight. So one of the things on my mind as you were speaking was like, what's going to stay? So with all the changes, there's so much that you've done, and I'm sure you've learned so much, and it could still be a conversation that's happening. So I'm not holding you to anything. But what elements do you think will stay?
Well, I think not only, I think what will stay, what's demanded, what's reimbursed. I think one thing that's we're learning about now is not only the technology that we are capable of performing, but we're learning about more how patients and our own staff demand these technologies, right? So this has been a test case for patients and how they will choose now and will choose to reach out for access healthcare in the future. So I think and we're seeing that, not only are we rolling out telecapable healthcare visits, but our patients are benefiting from that care, and they are, as the end user, identifying for themselves the benefits of this, and that will really, I think, have a big impact, a huge impact on reshaping what technologies will gain more traction than others.
No, I really like that. What's demanded will stay. Big believer of it. And I do think it's on both sides, right? It's what the clinicians are finding useful and have utility towards, as well as what consumers and patients are coming up with to say, I really want this. When we think about technology, and you talked about a lot of things around, with COVID Watch, people be able to kind of triage, people be able to access their data and their information. But one thing that we talk about quite often at Reach is about equity. And I think tech equity is a whole other space that we have to keep in our lens, because like the examples you gave were so good, but there's definitely going to be groups of individuals that could not access those tools at the same pace or the same level or in the same language, and therefore they were missing out. So how is this a conversation that you're having within your order?
Absolutely. I think it's so important to kind of cross-check that technology needs to work it needs to streamline care, it needs to improve care, it needs to be helpful to the end users, both providers, hospitals, centers, and patients and families. And I think it's so important for stakeholders to be involved in development of technology and understand its benefits and constraints. I just, not to throw another COVID example, but look at the monumental effort that the globe, our country, has performed in getting as many people vaccinated in as quickly an amount of time as we've done. But very early on, we identified the barriers of vaccine hesitancy, right? And we saw, talk about health equity. It was clearly evident that there was a disparity in vaccine hesitancy among race, ethnicities, and age, and professional and types of professions that people worked in. What we also learned very quickly is the technology that we set up to allow people to access the vaccine was very elusive to some that weren't tech savvy. So a lot of these enrollments for the vaccine were email-based, web-based. There was no walk-in, call up to make an appointment. And I just need to look at my own, my mom in the struggle in trying to get her to schedule for a vaccine. And it was just nearly weeks. It was just impossible for her. And I, finally got involved. It was difficult for me. So I think we have to recognize, sometimes we take for granted that everyone has a smartphone. And the truth is, smartphones are $1,000 devices. The subscription is very expensive. Not everyone has them. Not everyone has the ease of mobility in using them. And so I think that's where, we talk about health equity, but within the technology is also implemented, we also have to cross-check how equity can be impacted by the technology we're trying to implement and the unintended consequences of that innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great to hear that kind of thinking is happening, because, as much as we have so much to sort out, I think there's always a concern, and there's lots of data to kind of support it, that we're going to exacerbate the gap. And therefore, those that can afford it, already have access, who are very good at communicating what they want, will continue to grasp and get the benefits and the outcomes, and then we'll have a greater gap within health and healthcare. But coming to assessing that value of a technology, we have a lot of tech companies that join Reach Live, and they are always keen to know assessment criteria. So, if someone's bringing a technology to you and they want it to be implemented, what are the elements of value assessment that you would do, and what are some of the challenges also that you have around that?
Yeah, I think what are the outcome measures for the tool or innovation or technology they're implementing It needs to improve access, improve outcomes, improve safety, and improve experience. And so it needs to be cross-checked against all stakeholders, CFOs and their teams, medical staff and their teams, nursing staff and their teams, patients, end users, quality analysts and administrators. So we really need to come to the table and assess value, and how do we measure that from different angles. Just kind of pulling it back to, and I know we spoke recently about an award that we were recognized by the Association of Ambulatory Behavioral Healthcare for Program of the Year. For back to COVID, when we shut down, we have a 110-bed psychiatric hospital. We also have intensive outpatient and partial hospitalization programs. And when the pandemic started, that didn't mean the mental health issues of our patients ended or was in hold. So as we shut down our outpatient practices, 9 days later, with 250 staff and 600 patients enrolled in our intensive outpatient program, we start up our program with psychiatric evaluations, group therapy, individual therapy, family therapy, medical management. So we implemented that of necessity. But what we did was we measured the outcomes of that. So we measured the value that we had from those patients. So we were able to look at 10,000 patient encounters, assessing them for experience and identifying that 95% of those patients were highly satisfied with that care. In fact, the majority of them said that when we went back to in person, if that was an option, they would still consider continuing in the remote setting. So here is something that where we, out of necessity, rolled out, used technology to continue and enhance a program. But we measured the outcomes of that from an experience standpoint, from an access standpoint, from a value standpoint, and from a symptom standpoint. And I think that's, it's crucial when we roll out technology to measure in terms of the value among a cascade of stakeholders.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as an answer, and congratulations on the award win, because it's fantastic, to have that, and also to see the benefits that you've been able to really shine, because more evidence that we generate, and the more that we kind of share those evidence bases, it does everything for the industry. It moves everyone forward. So recognition of such cases are really important. Thinking about communication. So communication is critical in healthcare. If one person, the right person, doesn't get the right information at the right time, it can have detrimental impact. How have you seen communication evolve and change with technology?
Just in so many ways, right? I mean, I used to carry around a beeper. I was so excited in medical school when I got a beeper, and the way we communicate at the hospital now is much more like we communicate in everyday life. So I think our ability to, with encrypted text messaging is one way we can not only reach out to people more effectively, but in a group setting, we can reach out to, we can reach out to the stroke team or the hip fracture team, and we can capture those people simultaneously and with the right information. So we're all communicating together. How we are able to reach out to patients after they've been discharged. We know that patients, when they leave the hospital, most of them don't recall everything they need to recall about their discharge instructions, about their follow-up requirements or recommendations, about how they should take their prescribed medications. So how do we communicate with their patients? We know discharge phone calls and contacts after their discharge is important. We can use technology to reach out to all those patients in an automated fashion to identify or triage which patients are discharged, are doing fine, don't have any questions, versus some that, like, I have no idea. I got these 2 prescriptions and I have no idea which one to take or which one to stop taking. And we can then escalate that concern, that issue, to a live person. So we can use technology to bridge and enhance communication so that it's more frequent, regular, and standardized across systems.
It is phenomenal. And I'm excited to see where it goes. I think it has had a huge trajectory in how we communicate. with like having more regular reminders and having these check-in calls and things like that. But I suppose there's a lot more that can also be done. So I think it's quite exciting also where the future of communication and better support, more proactive and preventative messaging could eventually come in as well, though we're a bit further from that yet. Let's talk about staff. Let's talk about clinicians. Like you say, healthcare has been pushed to its limits. Truly has. And it's not ended. There's still so much going on, and there's such a backlog of cases and things to still look at. So we know clinician burnout is a reality. It is happening. And how are you coping with that? And how are you keeping your staff well?
It's a challenge. I mean, we physician burnout, staff burnout, nursing burnout has been an issue that before COVID, and COVID is really simply, quite frankly, exacerbated that problem, which it was considered a national crisis before COVID. It's just amplified that as an impact. The reality is there are many healthcare workers today that are emotionally, physically exhausted. Physicians, we've taught generations of physicians to not ask for help if they're emotionally exhausted. It's the standard operating procedure to pull all-nighters, work 24-hour shifts. Be lucky if you're eating standing up in between patients. And the reality is, the majority of physicians experience burnout. You see it in the suicide rate. It's alarming. The suicide rates that have increased among physicians is a real problem. So I think the first step is to be aware and recognize the magnitude of this problem. It's taken years to get to this point. It's going to take a long time to get us back to a better, more appropriate state. And a few yoga classes are not going to help this. So I think bringing awareness to the attention of physicians. Many physicians haven't even aware of what they're feeling are symptoms of burnout. I think it's important to bring awareness. So what we're doing is we're talking about it. We're bringing awareness to it. We're measuring it with wellness and burnout surveys, enrolling our physician and staff in programs where they can have routine reminders that will assess their level of burnout and exhaustion. And if they are experiencing level of burnout and exhaustion, it ties them to resources to address that. We're talking to our physician leaders on how to better be prepared to recognize some of the things that they may be seeing among their staff that are signs of burnout. Flexible scheduling, ensuring that people have the appropriate level of time off, and really, frankly, just for those that are really suffering, resources for mental health. So we have technology. We have a program where all our staff, including our medical staff, can tap into and on-demand mental wellness check-in, and if there are any high risk or concerning features, that'll trigger an on-demand live therapist to get on and speak with the provider anonymously. We have group sessions, and during COVID, we had a chaplain. We had one of our physicians, an ER physician, who caught COVID, was on a ventilator for 90 days. The impact that had on our staff, the psychology, the fear, the being at the bedside with our colleagues on a ventilator. We were able to, bring in the chaplain and have part of our huddles and round and 11. We had group sessions and FaceTimes, Zoom sessions with staff at home to talk about how they're feeling. I think I don't have a perfect answer for it. There's a starting point is recognizing that this is a serious issue, bringing awareness to the country, to our physicians, and measuring it, and putting in programs to help support our physicians and staff. And it's not just a physician issue; it's a healthcare issue.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of things you've shared there, and hopefully inspiring to others as well when they're thinking about initiatives and things that to do. I will also advise people to check out resilience.healthcare, which has some fantastic resources and is supported by Reach. So it's developed by Reach as well, but it's all about clinician well-being too. But I completely agree with you, Craig. It's not just about clinicians. It is about healthcare workers across the board, and also care. I mean, across the spectrum. We can go to caregivers, and we can go, it's just every element. And the more we can all do, like you say, to raise awareness of the issue, but to be there for one another. Sometimes the simple things, but also just using the resources that we have available to us.
And recognizing the kindness and the, I mean, I've come out of the pandemic. We're not fully out of it, but sometimes more depleted and exhausted than ever before. But I've never felt like there's been more purpose to my career, my profession than ever. And I think the more of us can learn to accept and feel that day to day, I think it's just important for us to kind of realize the purpose and value that we provide. I mean, that is our gift as healthcare workers, to our communities and to ourselves.
Yeah. Well,
We need to be positive. Positive energy goes a long way, and I think it's very team-based. The more you can instill that in your team-based units every day, it's a contagious positive energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And purpose is so key, right? Knowing why we do what we do every day and feeling that you're part of something. So wrapping up, the future of health. What are the areas that you really are focused on when you think about the modernization of care and the future of care?
I think this is where it starts to get a little personal for me. I think I don't take for granted that the magnitude, the impact, and the responsibility I have in my role, and my own personal journey going from, ER physician, which I still am, I still practice, but the rewarding one-on-one connection of doing something one patient at a time. But now in my role and working with like tremendous, extremely intelligent, forward-thinking, motivated people in my organization, it's really expanded my horizon. So things that really looking forward to is and impacting is burnout and wellness for our entire staff. We talked about health equity. As an ER physician, I saw disparities in health equity every day, and I wasn't recognizing or I wasn't thinking about it as much. The fact that more patients come to an ER with hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, the days before waiting for their social security check to come in, and the food insecurity and the choice they have to make, and that's showing up in the ER. I was seeing it every day. So we have a tremendous focus on health equity and, trying to get from aspiration to closing that gap, closing those vulnerabilities. I think that's a really exciting part of what I'm involved with. Quality, patient safety experience. The past 2 decades, COVID has shown we are making tremendous strides in quality and patient safety in the healthcare industry throughout the country. And when you look at certain safety and quality metrics, the past 2 years, it's eroded 20 years of gains. So what does that say? One, it says for the past 20 years, things have been working. Things have been working in healthcare to improve quality, to improve patient safety. We need to build resiliency in our healthcare system to prepare us and learn from what we've experienced the past 2 years, and to develop into a more high reliable organizations. And so that latter piece is something that I'm really also excited to work with locally in my organization throughout our system and beyond. I think that's our mission over the next few years, is as we'll learn and accept what's happened, learn from and accept what's happened the past 2 years, but act boldly to improve upon the resiliency and reliability and safety and quality in healthcare delivery going forward. And of course, technology needs to help us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to kind of hear from you and your thoughts and your perspectives, and you've been quite candid as well and shared quite a lot with us. So thank you for that so much. It's been a great talk. With that, I'm gonna wrap. So a quick update from Reach. Reach will be attending the American College of Obstetricians and Gynaes annual scientific meeting in San Diego, May 6th to 8th. So if you're around, please do check out Reach. Beyond that, just subscribe to Reach Live and continue being with us each month. And over to you, Craig, to say your final goodbye.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank you for having me. I want to thank all my colleagues that have touched me, my life, and our patients. I've talked a lot about things that we've done, but it is a team-based sport, and just nobody can do what we need to do in healthcare alone. So thank you for having me, and I appreciate being here.
Absolutely. It's been great. Thank you so much, Craig. Thank you. And to everyone else, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.